Secily Wilson has survived a lifetime of challenges, including childhood abuse and having a stroke on live television. But instead of letting adversity define her, she chose to fight back and thrive against the odds.
Wherever you are at that moment in your life, don't sit there and have a pity party for one. Literally, bloom where you're planted. Take what you have and make it your own. And I did just that.
Her journey up next on Reinvention at Any Age. How did you end up in this kind of situation? And that changed the whole trajectory of your life. This is my light, and I'm going to let it shine. Even if it's uncomfortable, if the change is for the better, it's worth it. Don't be scared, prepare. Reinvention is possible. Go make it happen for you today. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Reinvention at Any Age. I'm Amy Sweezy. After reinventing myself a couple of times, I have become passionate about helping you navigate through your reinvention. My guest today, you might say, is a poster child for reinvention. She chose to reinvent herself a few times through her drive and passion toward a career that she coveted in broadcast journalism. Other times, she was forced to reinvent herself when she had no other options. Secily Wilson survived 2 strokes, one of which she had on live television while she was delivering a news report at the age of 39. She also survived child abuse, sexual abuse, a painful divorce, job losses, home foreclosure, homelessness, and even an arrest. In each of those moments, Secily found herself reinventing her life. And she shares much of her story in her book, She Said the P Word, and is here today to share with us on Reinvention at Any Age. Please welcome Secily Wilson to the podcast. Hello.
Hi, Amy. How are you? When I was listening to you, I'm like, crap, I went through all of that.
You did. And you put it all in your book. So first of all, let me get it right there. Your book is amazing. The entire time I was reading it, I just felt like you were sitting right next to me sharing your story in person.
Thank you for that. And it was a heartfelt pour for that book because I felt like I gave so much of my story, which I did, but it was so true. And I was hoping that would help someone else who may be too afraid or too embarrassed or just not comfortable with even sharing. But I feel very confident, Amy, that when you are transparent with others, then they are allowed to see themselves in your story. And I'm hoping that's what I did.
Well, it's vulnerable, it's honest, it's just full of poignant advice and testimony. So thank you for being willing to put yourself out there and be vulnerable in the pages of your book.
Yeah, thank you.
So before we talk about some of your life's reinventions, I just want to ask, first of all, about the title of the book. For people who don't know you, can you explain why She Said the P Word is the title that you chose?
Yeah, well, you have to read the book.
Right?
Right. You have to read the book. But I will tell you that back in the day, right after actually I lost my job at the station, a local broadcast station, and I was trying to reinvent myself and trying to get back into the industry. My family found themselves as contestants on The Family Feud. And that was one of my favorite game shows since childbirth. And I grew up watching that. And then when I heard that it was being recorded right in our backyard at Universal Studios, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is my chance. And I am the queen of taking opportunities as soon as I see them. And I knew that if I could get in front of Steve Harvey, maybe, just maybe, he would be that person that can help me get back into the industry. But fast forward, we're on the fast money round, my sister and and I said something that went absolutely viral that started with the P word. So with that in mind, I thought, when I started to write the book, people would always stop me. Hey, aren't you the lady that said the P word on TV? And I'm thinking, That's the title of the book. And you know, Amy, as we are in TV, you can be a little provocative. And I'm thinking that would engage someone to pick up the book and read, but it's not what you think.
Exactly. Yes, there's a lot of P words that you come to find out in the book. And you start off with your childhood. So you're a military brat, but also domestic violence, sexual abuse are in your past. Do you feel like those experiences that you shared pushed you into reinventing yourself sort of from a traumatic childhood into this much healthier adult and motherhood?
100%. 100%. I take those moments, although, albeit they were traumatic, I often I'm asked, would you change any of that? I thought about it. And at first I would say, absolutely. I wouldn't want to go through that crap ever, ever again. But I realized that all of that made me who I am, the strength that I have, the tenacity that I come to the table, able to withstand adversity. That was all because of what I went through, and I decided that yes, I will make lemonade out of the lemons that I had. So yes, it's made me that woman who I feel I'm not invincible, but I'm not weak. So when adversity comes to me, I'm going right. Come on, let's go. You're ready. Let's do this. And so that's how I feel that really helped me in a way that I am here today.
And you are a mom, you are a grandma. How were you able to break that mold?
Yeah, intentionally. And I take that with one of my favorite P words, prayer. That is the foundation of who I am. My faith system and my belief in Jesus Christ is the one that really helps me center myself when those moments feel like I'm weak. I can't breathe. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing right now. I look to the Lord to guide me. And as an adult, I knew when I was going to be a mommy, that past would not be a part of my present. That past would not be a part of my children's lives. And so I made intentional decisions with who I married, which was their father, clearly, and knew that that would not be a moment in their life. So I was very intentional about that. No one wants to repeat that. And I say that, yes, I wouldn't change it, but I don't want to repeat it.
Can you share a little bit about your career? I know that you wanted to be the first Black news anchor woman, and then some woman named Oprah Winfrey stole your thunder.
Yes, that Oprah, how dare she?
Rude.
Just rude. But yes, I've always wanted to be that journalist, and I didn't recognize that until I was a senior in high school at Valdosta High School. And back in the day, Amy, you may remember they would have this one station that would have ticker tapes across, and you would just sit there and read it, right? And it was just like a community network or something. And I would sit there and I would read the ticker tape that would go across as if I were reading a teleprompter. And but I also got sent home notes from my mom all the time that Cecily's talking too much in class. I literally would have my seat moved all the time because I'm just a little chatty Cathy. And I knew that that was something that I wanted to do. And when I recognized that I didn't see a lot of Black women in the industry at that time, and this was the early 80s, I'm like, wow, I only saw one person in Atlanta. Monica Kaufman is the only person that I saw. She was the face of that Atlanta station. And I knew that I wanted to do that. And so I went off to school, was laser focused, and God blessed me with an opportunity to do just that for over 30 years. And so here I am. That's what I wanted to do.
And you changed jobs a few times, as many of us do in the TV business. You have to move to a new location, you started a new station. But those are kind of reinventions in and of themselves, or maybe evolution is a better word for that. But you also reinvented yourself in many other ways too, not just with your job. You went from single mom to married mom to divorced mom. You had to recover from two strokes where
Yeah.
you literally lost your voice and had to relearn how to talk. So, what would you say is your most significant reinvention?
Oh, wow. Most significant reinvention. I think, Amy, I think the reinvention, the most significant for me is deciding to just make that reinvention. I can't say that there's one significant one. What I do know is that deciding to move into a new place, walking into the unknown can be a little unnerving and a little scary at times. But I took all of those failures and all of those setbacks to develop the strength that I have now. And I think the significance of it all means that you can bring anything to me and I'm going to take it and make it into something special. And I remember Joyce Myers, a pastor, would say this all the time: bloom where you're planted. What does that mean? Bloom where you're planted. Wherever you are at that moment in your life, don't sit there and have a pity party for one. Literally, bloom where you're planted. Take what you have and make it your own. And I did just that. I remember, I wrote it in my book. I remember when I was looking for a job and I literally became an Uber driver. Like me, Cecily, a broadcast news anchor, I'm freaking driving Uber. But I had to do what I had to do in order to make sure that my children, one was still in college, one was about to graduate from high school. So I needed to do something. But I would drive that Uber, my car, with my resume in the back seat of that. So whenever someone was writing, if they wanted to have a conversation and they had questions about, why are you driving this Uber? Here's my resume. Take a look. If you know anyone, let me know. And my car actually has monitors in the back seat because I can play videos. And I would have my resume tape playing sometimes in the monitors. And they're looking like, wow, she's pretty good. Who is that? I'm like, hi. So again, I think the biggest thing for me is to bloom where you're planted. And regardless of where you are, it may not be where you want to be at that moment, but bloom where you are. And I will say that to anyone at that moment. It's hard, but it's necessary.
And I think there's so many people who would look at something like that, not as an opportunity, but, oh, that's beneath me. I can't be an Uber driver because I'm on television. And, like you said, you did what you had to do.
Absolutely. And there are many times where you think about that. But again, I go back to my faith that God says, I give you the ability to gain wealth. He tells us all of these things of who we are and that we are great, regardless of what we may think that situation that we're in. And so I even thought about that. I just reinvented myself again as a flight attendant for a national airlines, right? And I thought that same thing, Amy. I'm so glad that you said that because my sister laughs at me now because I literally did not want to say anything to anyone. I'm a flight attendant. I'm a glorified waitress. Like, Cecily, what? And I didn't say anything, Amy. But now
Wow.
I'm like, I get free flying privileges. I can fly all over the world for free. I'm like, I'm meeting individuals and I'm making it my own. And quite frankly, my initials are the same initials of the airline. So I think I own the airlines.
So it's meant to be.
It was meant to be.
Well, and I think the other thing that's neat that I didn't know about you, but I learned when I read your book was you actually had aspirations of being a flight attendant when you were much younger. And so when I read that, I was like, oh, this is so cool. She's come full circle and she's doing now what she always had wanted to do back in the day.
Well, you know what? I take that back. I did not always want to do it. So keep that in mind. In the
Okay.
book, Amy, I literally had just graduated and then I had Chrissy, my oldest daughter. And I was still finishing school and I'm like, oh my gosh. And everyone thought, oh my gosh, Cecily, your life is going to be, it's going to go to hell in a handbasket now that you're a mom, blah, blah, blah. Right. And I figured I need to do something. So I'm like, you know what? I'll just see if I can become a flight attendant. And people poo-pooed on the idea and I actually got an interview, but then they said they couldn't hire me because I was a new mommy. And so I'm like, oh, well, look at this. It is kind of full circle because here I am again. by choice, by this time by choice.
Yes. When you had Your first stroke, but both of your strokes, of course, you literally lost your voice.
Mm.
How scared were you when your voice was your job? You needed your voice. You needed to be able to talk and walk, and you couldn't do those things. I don't know a lot of people that would be able to, just pick themselves up by the bootstraps and say, I'm going to relearn this.
Yeah. And Amy, you know more than ever, this is our livelihood. This is what we do. And to have that taken away from me, again, I'm like, I don't know what else to do. This is all I know how to do. I have to go back to my prayer life. That really centered me. And I'm like, I'm not going out like this. This is not going to happen to me. So I literally had to hunker down and focus because there was no other option for me. And oftentimes when I think about, oh, I'm going to have plan A, I'm going to have plan B, I'm going to have, no, when you only have plan A has to work. So there's no other option. And so for me, I felt like there's no other option. I'm going to make this work. And then because I'm dealing with the Lord, and it's funny to me because I'm like, okay, I'm bargaining with the man himself. I'm like, hey, dude, listen, if you do this for me, then I'll do this for you. And I'm like, listen, if you give me my voice back, I promise you, I'll be intentional with everything that I say and everything that I do. And I'll always, always give you the glory. And so he says, oh, listen here, I'm going to make you a nonprofit leader. That's what you're going to do. You're going to create a nonprofit. I'm like, what are you talking about, Willis? What you talking about? Like, I have no idea of what a nonprofit does and how to do it. That's not what I do. I want to be on TV. And that another reinvention, got into the nonprofit sector and became director of development for a local YMCA. And again, that developed the information and the skills that I needed to even create my own nonprofit. I had no idea that that was going to be a part of my story, Amy. So going from not being able to speak to bargaining with God, getting my voice back, and then helping other women find their voices. Who knew that that was going to be my story?
Can you share a little bit with us about the WOW Legacy Group and Fall Into Fabulous? And you mentioned the nonprofit, the philanthropist. How does it work? How do you help women?
Yeah. So WOW Legacy Group is an acronym for Women Overcoming with Willpower, because that's exactly what it takes for women to overcome any adversity. And oftentimes, many of the women that come into our program fall into Fabulous, which is the name of the empowerment program. Life has fallen apart for them. And so I often like to say, wipe away the tears, put your big girl panties on, and fall into fabulous. And fabulous is less of the superficial, but the desire to do something different, to end a toxic relationship, to start your business, to write that book, to save for your new home, doing something that's going to get you to the next step. And so we welcome women from across Central Florida into our program who are struggling in some way through divorce, job loss, domestic violence, some adversity that has stopped them in their tracks. And we take them through a 6-week empowerment program, focusing on everything from finances to health and wellness, to community engagement, to career development. So all those culminates into our annual fundraiser that we have every year in December called Fall Into Fabulous. And so women just like you and I, and it's not just for Black women, it's for women that are facing adversity, that want to say, I'm stuck, but how do I become unstuck? And we are there to help them hold their hands and walk them through it.
And you are helping them reinvent themselves.
Reinvent themselves. And that's often scary because they're like, this is all I've ever done. I've only been a mommy and now my husband's dead. And now I've got to figure out what, so it's a reinvention. And quite frankly, I didn't think of it that way, but yes, it is.
Can you share about a time that you set out to reinvent yourself, but then found yourself on the wrong path?
Oh,
And then maybe how you found your way back?
I can't say, because everything that I said I was going to do, I do with intention. And I don't try to do things that are outside of my wheelhouse because I'm smart enough to realize that's not for you, Cecily. But I will say that there are things that I started out to do. And when I start out something, I actually try to get it done. I'm not always successful. I remember starting my own talk show. I wanted to do The Edge with Cecily. And it was very successful for the first few months. And because that's a lot of money to kind of do it on your own. And it wasn't successful in the eyes of finances. So that is something that I feel like I've always thought about. How do I do it again? How do I make this work now that technology is all over the place? Maybe it could be, something again. But I can't say that I've ever started out something, found myself on the wrong path. I found myself with the wrong person
Well, that's kind of connected.
and realized, that's not the person for you. Let's get you back on the right path. So kind of the same.
In your book, you share about various times in your life that you had a plan, and then there were other times that you had no plan. So, how important do you think it is to have a plan when you're trying to reinvent yourself?
Oh, it's vitally important. And I say that that's one of the principles that I live by. You've got to have a plan. You cannot walk into a reinvention or anything that you're working on without a plan. And like I said earlier, I didn't have a plan A, plan B, plan C. It was always that plan A. But what I recognize is that when you have a plan B, then it allows for plan A to not be successful. It gives you that out, right? And so for me, having that plan is important to know, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it this way, walking through that plan, but be persistent with that plan. Always have that plan with persistence and pursue. Because when you go after it, you can't just go after it and say, okay, I'm just going to throw the ball and not see if it's going to happen. You've got to pursue. I liken it to playing the pivot. We heard that word 100 times over
Mm-hmm.
during 2020. We've got to
Mm-hmm.
make a pivot. We got to make a pivot. And so I was married to a basketball player, and our children played basketball. And pivot was something that I've always known in the basketball terminology. But then when I started hearing about it, I thought about pivot. In basketball, the men are going, or women, they're going after their opponent. They see them coming after them, and they got to plant their foot, and they've got to scope out the area and pivot and then pursue. That's what I recognize in life. You see the adversity coming towards you. Are you going to just sit there and let them take your ball? No. You're going to grab that ball, that goal, that dream, that passion, whatever it's in your hand and in your heart, you're going to hold on to that, and you're going to scope it out. You're going to look for your out, and you're going to plant your foot because you're in for a fight. You got to be ready and steady and ready to go, and you pivot. And when you pivot, you pursue because you got to go right after that goal that you're going after, right? So that's what I liken pivot to, and having that plan and making sure that you pursue. Those are principles that I live by.
And there's so many P's in everything you just said there.
Right.
now
Absolutely.
we now we have a better idea of what she said the P word is all
Is all
about.
about. Exactly.
And one of the P's that you do stress in the book is posse. Time after time, your friends, your family, your posse was there to support you and really give you some tough love on occasion. So, how important was your circle of friends during your times of reinvention?
I would not be here sitting here talking to you right now, Amy, if it were not for my posse. And everyone cannot be a part of your posse. You need those posse members who are going to be there in the good times and the bad times. They're going to call you out on your stuff when you're wrong, because I have some really good girlfriends who are like, Cecily, that was messed up. You need to fix it and hold me accountable. And there are those who are there to help wipe my tears, but not let me sit in my pittiness, my self pity. They're like, okay, we recognize you're crying, we recognize you're hurt. Wipe away those tears. All right, we're crying with you. Now let's move forward. What is your plan to get out of where we are right now so that we can get you to the next place, right? And if I did not have my girlfriends, there are many of them who helped me when I didn't even know I needed help, or when I didn't even want to ask for help. Because pride, another P word, will stop you sometimes from doing the things that you want to do or becoming who you know you need to be. I never knew pride could have stopped me from becoming an amazing flight attendant that I've already won awards my first year because of pride. I'm Cecily Wilson. I can't be a flight attendant. I'm too good for that. No, you're not. And as long as you're not out there doing something illicit, then that's a respectable career, and position. And I absolutely love it.
And one of the stories was that you share about basically being homeless, that you were kicked out of your house. But this wasn't when you were a teenager. This wasn't when you were a young person. This is when you're established in life, right? And that's one of those times where it's like, man, I'm embarrassed. I'm too proud. I don't want my friends to know. But it was your friends and your posse that said, we are going to help you. You need to accept our help. And then you
Yes.
moved up from there.
Absolutely. And so I lost my home to foreclosure simply because I did not have my two uh, salary income. The divorce was final, and now I'm trying to maintain this home. After I lose my position, then I have nothing. I'm like, how did I find myself here? And I'm sitting here thinking, I wasn't saying a word. I can't let anyone know that my life is going to hell in a handbasket. But those who were close to me, they knew. They're like, okay, we got you. Let's get this stuff, pile it up on your Escalade, ride through your gated community with your mattress on top of your Escalade. I laugh about it, but Amy, that was the most humiliating point. I'm sorry of my life. That I felt like I was here, but then I was here. But knowing the value and the power of having a posse that's going to be there with you, even when you're down here, who help breathe life into you when you can't breathe for yourself, who stand by you and say, your value isn't diminished because this is a comma in your story. Don't put a period here, Cecily. This is just a comma, and we're going to get through this. And those friends who I love dearly, I'm indebted to for life, and they know that.
And I know this part of
Okay,
your
Oprah.
don't make me cry. I know this part of your story, though, as difficult as it is so helpful and inspiring because there are so many other women who no doubt are in this situation. You go from this great life of two income and then suddenly happens and you lose an income and then maybe you lose both and then all of a sudden, whoa, my life is completely different.
Yeah. So what do you do? What do you do? You have a choice. You have
Right.
a choice. So you can choose to stay in that emptiness, that sorrow, that pit of despair, or you can decide I'm going to take the equity that I already know. That equity is the lessons learned, the failures, the setbacks. All of that information is equity. You take that equity and you put it into a new home, a new desire, a new path, a new plan, and you move forward. And all of that makes you who you are. Because now you can go back and say, I took a left at Albuquerque yesterday. I'm going to go right. That's equity. And that's valuable. That's valuable.
Absolutely. Cecily, thank you for being here. If people want to know more about you, they want to read your book, how can they find you? Or, of course, find out more about your nonprofit?
Absolutely. Well, legacygroup.org, or you can log on to thececilywilson.com. So there's my website. All of the information is there. My book is there. And it's not hard to find me. I'm there.
The Secily Wilson. Yes. And I know you're on social media, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn.
Yes, all of those.
Well, I know our time was short, but I so appreciate you. I appreciate you
Maybe is
sharing
it
your
over?
story. It's over. But I know, listen, I know that, all the rest of your stories that we don't have time to talk about are all in your book. And
Yeah.
I know that your story of multiple reinventions is going to be such an inspiration to so many others. So, Secily Wilson, thank you so much.
Amy Sweezy, thank you so much. I appreciate you, girl.
So, what about you? What inspired you about Cecily's story? Do you draw strength and courage from her journey? Cecily has been knocked down so many times, but she refuses to stay down. You can refuse to believe that your current situation will define your future. Just because you feel like there's no hope or no way out, it doesn't mean there isn't. Make up your mind to make a change. Make a plan of action steps and then go do it. Instead of just thinking that someday you will reinvent yourself, say it and do what's necessary to make it happen. When you see someone else who seems to have it all together, remember there may be a lot hidden under the surface that you know nothing about. They may be in the process of reinventing themselves as well. Whether you want to reinvent yourself or you have to reinvent yourself, remember, reinvention is possible. Go make it happen for you today.